From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Amarachi Ubani.
A 12-year-old boy killed, 13 others injured from an attack by suicide bombers on a mosque in Gwoza, Borno State. President Muhammadu Buhari orders deployment of air power against bandits, kidnappers and cattle rustlers operating in difficult terrains in Niger State and its environs. LEAH Sharibu's father keeps mum over report of his daughter's alleged marriage to a Boko Haram commander. Says all he wants is his daughter's safe return. And suspected Islamic militants killed 20 soldiers in Sokolo military camp in the central Segu region of Mali. Plus sports stories. Tonight, security again takes the center stage as efforts at ending the almost one-decade-old fight against Boko Haram insurgents continue. The group again proved that it is re-strategizing on how to hit sub-targets, bringing back the use of innocent girls as suicide bombers today. Aside that, the father of the abducted Dapchi schoolgirl, LEAH, is still worried that the fate of his daughter still lies in the hands of the insurgents and is not willing to make any comment on LEAH's rumored marriage to a Boko Haram commander. That, coupled with the unending attacks by armed bandits, the daring action of kidnappers and cattle rustlers, have forced the president to order air power on them, particularly in difficult terrains. A new twist to the fight, you may say, but that terrifying attack in Gwoza today is where we take off from, as two suspected suicide bombers killed themselves. A 12-year-old boy who is innocent and injured 13 others. Channels Television gathered that the female bombers tried to force their way into the mosque during the early morning prayers before some persons in the neighborhood raised the alarm. The army says the suicide bombers might have infiltrated the town during a wedding which held at the palace of the Emir of Gwoza on Saturday. The spokesperson of the Operation Lafia Dole, Colonel Ado Issa, says the area has been cordoned off and normalcy returned.
Our troops have been mobilized to the scene. I'm talking about 26th Task Force Brigade based there in Gwoza. And situation has been stabilized, and effort, as I speak with you, is ongoing to ensure that situation like this, the reoccurrence of situation like this, would not happen again. They took advantage of the social gathering. And you know, in social gathering, is a gathering of many people, including minors too. So they took advantage of that and came in. But I assure you the situation has been under control and no cause for alarm.
For the president, ending the insurgency, taking out bandits, kidnappers and cattle rustlers is a priority, even if it means sniffing them out of their hideout. That explains why he ordered the fighter jets be joined in the efforts to provide effective air attacks in taking out the hoodlums, particularly those around forests bordering Kaduna, Niger and Zamfara states. The president, who described the repeated attacks leading to the loss of several lives as a disaster for the nation, also commiserates with those who have lost their loved ones in different attacks, particularly in Niger State, that they will not be abandoned by the rest of the country. The president says he has received assurance that the Harmattan dust gradually easing would help fighter jets, fighter aircraft join the fight this week. He asked that the Nigerian Air Force is setting up refueling facilities at Minna, Niger State to support the aircraft operations. Well, father of abducted Dapchi schoolgirl LEAH SHARIBU is not giving up yet on the hope that his daughter will return someday. With that in mind, Nathan Sharibu has decided that he would rather not make any comment on the story, making the round that his daughter has been married off to a commander of the terrorist group Boko Haram. He told our correspondent that his primary concern is to see his daughter return alive and will therefore not give any credence to any rumor. Journalist Ahmad Sakilda, who is believed to have access to the insurgents, had in a tweet announced that the schoolgirl, who is among the 112 students kidnapped by Boko Haram insurgents in Yobe almost 2 years now, is a mother. The tweet reads, "Why, I wonder, do we pretend that leaving Leah behind won't result in pregnancy? Since the terror group announced condemning her to slavery, is there any step or collective focus on preventing similar occurrences? She's a mother, but I don't know about the gender of the baby." The association, the Christian Association of Nigeria, and several other human rights groups have been at the forefront of campaigning for the release of LEAH SHARIBU since she's been in captivity. We'll have more on LEAH SHARIBU and her father's reaction to her alleged marriage to a Boko Haram commander shortly in a conversation with Ms. Buki Shonibare, the founder of Girl Child Africa. Meanwhile, the security situation in the country is also a cause of concern for Pastor Tunde Bakare, a former running mate of President Buhari when he was candidate of the Congress for Progressive Change, CPC, in the 2011 presidential election. Pastor Bakare believes that Nigeria cannot afford to take lightly its security challenges, as this may lead to anarchy in the nation. So he insists that restructuring cannot be swept under the carpet. He was speaking at the weekly Sunday service of his church in Lagos.
When one considers the argument for and against Amotekun, one will find a recurring reference to the issues which we as a nation have failed to deal with in past decades. The proponents of Amotekun, particularly in the South, justified the move by reinforcing the Sharia police of ISBA as a northern region version of regional policing. The opponents, on the other hand, particularly from the north, expressed fears of possible regional political motivations. These are clear indications that the issues we swept under the carpet in the past decades are still staring us in the face. We cannot continue to hide under the umbrella of one finger. It is time to address the underlying issues of nationhood and reset Nigeria on the path to predictable progress. The way forward for these recurring questions of federalism, including that of regional or state policy, is neither to the left nor to the right, nor is it in the center of the discourse. The way forward is to travel downwards to revisit the constitutional foundations while looking upwards with unwavering faith in our divinely ordained destiny as one strong, united nation with a strong federal government and strong federating units, a nation in which government as an entity is close enough to serve the people and strong enough to protect them.
Away from security, a former Chief of Army Operations, Training and Plans, retired Major General Ishola Williams, believes that though the present federal government has done more than its predecessor in fighting corruption, there's still a long way to go. General Williams, who is now the Executive Secretary of the Pan-African Strategic and Peace Research Group, told Channel Television's Ladia Keridulale on our current affairs program, Newsnight, that key institutions still need to be empowered if corruption is to be tamed.
I would say to a certain extent that the coming in of the president has sort of created a situation in which the issue of dealing with corrupt practices and things like that have been taken more seriously compared to the regime that he replaced. Okay. But what's interesting about the whole thing is that, you know, when they say in Nigeria that when a fish gets rotten, it starts getting rotten from the head. But Nigerian situation is very interesting. General Buhari, everybody says, is not corrupt. He's not involved in any deal. He's not involved in any scam. Okay. But the deals and the scams are still going on, as we know. So in the Nigeria's case, the head of the fish is not rotting, but the body is still rotting. Okay? That means there's something that ought to be done that has not yet been done. Apart from the institutions that are dealing with corruption, there are other basic institutions that it needs to empower and empower now.
Such as?
The Auditor General. Auditor General is supposed to be very, very independent. Very independent of his own, with his own commission and everything, his own staff, and they determine their own pay and things like that.
So that they're not susceptible to any kind of inducements.
But today, the auditors themselves are corrupt.
You'll watch the full interview with General Williams on Newsnight. It airs tomorrow, January 27th at 9 p.m. right here on Channels Television. Let's return now to our story on LEAH SHARIBU, with the father refusing to comment on her alleged marriage to a commander of the terrorist group, the Boko Haram. I've been joined now on the News at 10 by Ms. Buki Shonibare, the founder of Girl Child Africa and a prominent face in the Bring Back Our Girls group, to discuss the latest development. Ms. Shonibare, thank you for joining us on the News at 10.
Thank you for having me.
This has to be quite heartbreaking for you, hearing that LEAH SHARIBU has been married off and is in fact now a mother. But really, how do you feel?
Using your word is actually quite heartbreaking for a young girl, a vulnerable, innocent girl who simply went to school and was abducted. And 706 days after, we are having the news that she has become a mother. And as heartbreaking as that is, there is also a sense of anger. Anger at how we have treated the weak and vulnerable among us. When the other 105 Dapchi girls were released upon their abduction, one of the things that came out from the Boko Haram information that we got is that they were going to subject LEAH to slave for life. And what do we expect when you are condemning a citizen of Nigeria to slavery for life? That means that she will be subjected to torture, inhuman treatment. She will be raped. She will be abused. Everything that happens to a slave is what will happen. And I don't think any responsible government should sit down and watch a citizen, even if it is one citizen, to go through slavery, especially when our national laws and international laws that we are signatory to actually really condemn slavery.
Yeah, and I think that's the part that really hurts the most, the fact that you really don't know much about her well-being. You know, while in Boko Haram captivity, she's been there about a year plus. It really just, you know, renders it just blows your mind really what she must have been going through. But
hopeless.
Bring Back Our Girls campaign and other notable groups like the Christian Association of Nigeria have all been working in the forefronts in helping to call for LEAH's release from captivity. With what we're hearing now, do you think this will help speed up, you know, the efforts made towards her release?
When the other 105 girls were released, the president promised, and he said that his government will not leave LEAH SHARIBU abandoned. And how else do we describe abandonment? If 24 days to 2 years she's still in abduction. As much as we keep hearing a lot of promises, it is actually quite sad that this is happening. And until actions are put to the words that are released by the government, then the hope is actually quite slim for us. And that is because when a young girl like that has been in abduction for that long, and she's subjected to such kind of inhuman treatment, and we have a government that keeps promises, and you can literally just watch what the reaction will be. First, we will condemn in strong terms. We will release a statement, possibly on Twitter, and after the government does that, and then we make promises again, and after that, we just move on. Let me re-echo what the parents of LEAH SHARIBU had said, that whether LEAH SHARIBU has a child or she does not have a child, just bring her back. And I think that is the key message that we must pass. It's been 2,113 days since the Chibok girls were abducted. It's been 696 days since Alice Ngada was abducted, the humanitarian aid worker, and several others that we don't even know their names or faces. I think this news of LEAH SHARIBU purportedly having a child is a wake-up call for the government. And the government must not be reactionary. We must not wait until another information comes out from the den of the abductors before an action is being done. Action like bring back LEAH SHARIBU, action like bring back all the other abductees. I think it is the minimum standard that the government owes to citizens, especially the weak and the vulnerable citizens among us.
Ms. Buki Shonibara, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. Our thoughts and prayers are with LEAH's family at this time, and we do hope the government is listening and that she is brought home as soon as possible. Thank you again for joining us from our studio in Abuja. In part two, after the break, Jigawa State government confirms new case of Lassa fever as Ogun State denies death of pregnant woman who tested positive to the virus. Stay with us.